Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, a.k.a. Derringer. Today is Sunday, December 30th, and you are listening to episode 189 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for Planetside news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. First up, I want to talk about that Support the Show tab and just give a big thank you once again to everybody out there who used my Amazon link during their Christmas shopping this year, their Hanukkah shopping, whatever. Any of the holiday shopping that they did this year, I really, really appreciate you guys using my Amazon link. And for those that use it year round, I especially love you guys for doing that. I really appreciate it. Again, it's simple for you. It's the easiest way to support the show because it costs you absolutely nothing because you're going to shop on Amazon anyways, and Amazon's going to send me a small portion of whatever you're spending anyways. Other than that, Christmas here is over in the Derringer household. Actually, I think my wife has one gift left she needs to give to one of her friends. But other than that, we are completely done with Christmas here. I may, after the show, go upstairs and take down the tree and stuff like that to really purge the house of all its Christmasness because it's time. Otherwise, I had a pretty good Christmas this year. This is the first year ever that my family has hosted everything regarding Christmas. So that means my family came in from all corners of the globe and spent Christmas Day at my house. I smoked a Christmas ham. Shout out to Fireman. Told you I'd be thinking about you while I was smoking my Christmas ham this year. It came out good. Everything else came out good. But like I said, the biggest part was this is the first time ever that I've hosted Christmas and had everybody come to my house. I mean, you guys know I'm 44 now, and since I was 17 years old, I've been driving to my parents' house for Christmas every single year. So it would always be get up early in the morning, do Christmas morning at home, and then hop in the car for 2 hours to go to my parents and then do Christmas there and then drive 2 hours home. So it was always a 4-hour time in the car on Christmas Day. And while it was always good to see the family, the driving portion of it really stunk. And lately, with my mother-in-law not doing as well, it meant that my wife could not travel to my parents' house to do Christmas Day anymore. So having us move it to our house was the logical solution. And like I said, it really worked out well this year. We had a bunch of little kids running around. Maybe that doesn't relate to a lot of you, but having 3, 6, and 7-year-olds running around the house playing with toys was really Christmas to me, so it felt really good. I got some decent gifts this year as well. Someone sent me a Umbreon Pokemon, which was funny. A little stuffed animal of that, because everybody knows how much I love Umbreon compared to a crappy Pokemon like Flareon. And I also got, let's see, what else did I get? I got the last piece of Scythe that I didn't have, so the Rise of Fenris campaign for Scythe, which I'm looking forward to breaking into and playing. My stepson got me a Y-Wing Lego model, which I put together yesterday, and I haven't done Legos, God, in decades. I haven't put together Legos, so that was kind of fun. And a bunch of other little things that were really cool, and a lot of good stuff. Oh, my brother got me the newest expansion for Clank, which is another board game that I'm looking forward to playing as well. So yeah, I mean, I had a great Christmas this year. I hope you guys all had a really good holiday as well. But you've come here to listen to the podcast, not me talk about my holidays. So what's in store for this week's show? Well, if you haven't guessed it by now, it's time for my annual year in review show. So strap in as we take a look back at Planetside 2 in 2018 and hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. Now, like I said, this is becoming an annual event for me. I've done this the past couple years now on this show, where I just do a direct recap of everything that was important or good news within Planetside this past year. And obviously, all the information here, except for the end, is going to be Planetside 2 related. I expect 2019's year in review to be a good mix of both Planetside 2 and Planetside Arena. But like I said, 2018 was all about Planetside 2. And if we look back starting in January, we started with our first dev live stream of 2018. I'm hoping we do that again in 2019. But they had a dev live stream in 2018, and going all the way back to last January, on that dev live stream, they announced the Unstable Warpgates for the first time. And Unstable Warpgates are the newest. When a new continent opens, there's just that small lattice lane to fight at, and with a couple bases in the middle. They also announced the various events that they were going to be bringing to us in 2018. We know those as the aerial anomalies, the gaining ground event, the facility events, things like that. They also showed off the Bastion fleet carriers for the first time, and they introduced Garrett Brush to the team for the first time during the live stream of 2018. They also did give us some sadder news in January, where they said that they were scrapping vehicle hacking 100% from Planetside 2. And this is something I still wish that they would reconsider. I mean, vehicle hacking was such a huge part of the original Planetside that it's an oversight not having something like this in Planetside 2. And it's really something that infiltrators could really take advantage of and would give them another role within the game itself to play around with. I know they say it's gone and they're never going to revisit it, but maybe just me talking about it on the recap show will make them reconsider it. They also updated the PTS last January with the new vehicle capture points on continents other than Indar, new lattice link, and they also teased Doku's LMGs for the first time last January. Now, when we moved on into February of last year, or this year, I guess, because it's still December 30th, and you'll be listening to the show on the 31st. But in February, the Unstable update was first launched, and this brought us those Unstable Warpgates finally, the events, and things like that. We also got Coal Tier repurposed as a VR training area for the first time. Remember, Coal Tier was just its own separate learning continent for under BR15 players. And it was just a live place to play on, and now it was repurposed and was now just a virtual reality training area. Those aforementioned in January vehicle capture bases and new lattice links were added, and Doku's LMGs came to live, and we got our first taste of the Maw, the Promise, and the Watchman on VSNC and TR respectively. Also, during February, we got the Valentine's Day sale again, and you could purchase your star-crossed pack, which gave you the crossbows. But more importantly, we got a new weapon in the game itself. Not new, basically a new skin. But the Archer got a new Valentine's Day skin, the AM7 XOXO variant. And it's one that I still use a lot to this day whenever I run my Archer build on my Engineer. And I do like this one because it does have little hearts that shoot out when you actually hit people with it. And that's one of the main reasons I continue to use that one. Otherwise, February was a pretty quiet month, which moved us into March. And March also brought us a holiday. St. Patrick's Day was pretty early on in March itself. And with St. Patrick's Day, we kept going with the Archer variant theme, and instead got a new a new Decimator theme, and it's the Jackpot Decimator, a nice gold and green variant of the Decimator. This is another one that I use on every heavy assault loadout that I have the Jackpot Decimator wherever I was using a Decimator before. We also got the Ant and Sunder Lucky Tire Trails, which was basically, little shamrocks following them around, another trail that I like to use a lot. Also in March, we got some of the first new UI features added to the game that let us filter out weapons, prevent outfit invites, and much, much more. We also finally were able to complete the Exceptional 2 directive, and that was with the addition of the Jackpot Decimator. Prior to that, we just didn't have enough guns to Araxium to finish off the Exceptional 2 directive. But now, they added also some things to that directive. First off, at the Expert tier, you got the Cert Explosion Horn, and if you were finally able to complete the Master tier, that's the final level of the Exceptional 2 directive, you were able to get a single-use gold weapon camo. And I'll talk about this one later on in the year in review. But at the time, this was the only way that you could add a gold weapon, a gold camo to any of your weapons other than existing weapons in the game itself that already had a gold variant. And this was Daybreak Games' response to people asking for gold variants of different weapons for people who had gotten over 100,000 kills in the game. I know Aflick, as one example, who I play with in Bax, had gotten over 100,000 kills with the anchor and was always asking when he was going to be able to get his gold anchor. And there were other players on TR who had done the same thing with other TR weapons. And really the only gold variant we had in game was the SV88 or the SVA88 on the Vanu side. So this was the way that they could get around that and have a single-use gold weapon camo. Now, speaking of camo, in March was also the first time that Nick Silva's Paradise camo was added to the rare rewards list for wins on Hassan. Now, this camo was something that was asked for because, as you guys know, if you watch the dev live stream, Nick wears that horrible Hawaiian shirt with the parrots on it and everything like that. And this was turned into a camo. And like I said, now, starting in March, this was the first time that you could actually start earning this for a alert win on Hassan. And again, you had to be the faction starting the alert, and you also had to be the faction winning the alert, because originally it was only added for the meltdown or the final alerts themselves on the continents. March was also the first time that we saw some new things added to construction out on the PTS, because this was the first time that we were introduced to the Painspire, the Flail, and more importantly, the Router were all added on PTS at this time. And this coinciding perfectly was also the first time that Drew was introduced to the community. He has been with, or as of March, he had been with Daybreak Games for 5 months prior to this. We know now at this point that he had started the previous November, but had kind of been in the background learning construction and doing things like that. And he was one of the ones primarily involved with bringing the Painspire, Flail, and Router to construction, as well as a bunch of other construction changes that I'll talk about a little bit later. They also announced at this time that hives were going to be removed completely from construction itself, which a lot of people were very happy about. Also in March, they teased the next round of implants coming to the game during a live stream in March itself. And also in March, there was one community event that I talked about where we saw a video from Warpaint Gamer spending over $100 in the game in one go just trying to get an implant that he was missing. And I remember at the time saying, my God, how could he spend so much money just trying to get a single implant? And it was absolutely crazy. Finally, the last thing that was announced in March was ASP, and that's the Advanced Specialization Program. And obviously the Advanced Specialization Program is something that, we've been working with for a long time now. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in April, because that's when it actually went live. So moving on to April itself, that's when I did my annual April Fool's show, and I teased that ASP was the Araxis social portal. I also created the image saying that Daybreak Games was hosting a cruise this year. I announced construction coming to the PS4, which it never did. I announced an NC Max buff based on a a tongue-in-cheek comment that Rel made during one of his live streams. And then my favorite thing was that I announced that by using the code Courtesy Flush in game, that you could unlock the toilet flush horn for free. And I still laugh to this day because quite a few people messaged Nick and other of the developers saying that they couldn't get the Courtesy Flush code to work in game. So I chalk that up as a small victory for me, getting people to do that. But like I said before, April was huge because April is when the ASP system did finally go live. And for those that forget what ASP is, anybody who has a level or BR 100 character can unlock ASP for that character. It's either the amount of 10,000 certs, or if you're an all-access member, you can get into it for free. And what does basically the ASP system do? Well, it allows you to unlock some other specific benefits, things such as the benefits themselves are, all kinds of different things that you can use within your classes. Like for me, as an example, I'm huge into engineers, so I unlocked LMGs on engineers. I recently unlocked the assault rifles for the engineers, and probably the next thing, since I hit 50 recently, is I'll probably unlock the shotgun secondary on my engineer, but I'm kind of holding off. I keep earning an ASP point and then not spending it, so that I always have one, because I'm kind of sitting on one because I expect another round of ASP stuff to come out sometime in 2019. But again, what happens when you choose ASP, your battle rank is reset to battle rank 1, and you earn your first ASP token. Then at battle ranks 25, 50, 75, and 100, you earn another ASP token, and you can spend them, like I said, to unlock new class permissions and benefits for the game itself. ASP was huge. And honestly, back in April, when I was musing about what the ASP program is, I had hoped that it wasn't this, but now that it's in the game, a prestige system is basically what this is, and it wasn't really something that I wanted to see come to Planetside 2, but it did, and I'm using it just like other people are using it. ASP was kind of a big thing to get existing players to continue playing Planetside 2 going forward. Now, also in April, the squad browser itself was updated. They added the reserve hard light barrier to the game. They also buffed pistols, but the worst news in April itself was Daybreak Games had its first round of layoffs in 2018. And I believe it was between 70 and 90 people were laid off from the company. Thankfully, though, no one at Planetside 2 was affected by these layoffs. With that, though, we moved into March. One of the earliest things that happened in March was Carapace got a nerf, so that it wasn't, stacking with other medic healing things. But bigger than that was the 15th anniversary of the Planetside franchise was announced in May. And I was happy that Planetside 2 was involved in this and had a lot of cool things going on. So they offered the bending bundle, which got you a whole bunch of different things, including the bending beacon, which when you placed it, it had the Planetside logo with some meteors and stuff like that. You got access to the PS1 AV suppressor, which was a reskin of the MKV. And more importantly, we got access to the original Rexo armors and helmets in the game. And these were all redone by Faven. And I was happy to see that Daybreak Games is continuing to hire outside people to work on stuff like this. Now, granted, I didn't really like the Rexo armors and helmets. They just look so boxy. I did like the VS1, and I used the VS1 for a long time. I really haven't used the NC or the TR1 at all. But I was happy to see that something like this even came to the game as, a callback to the original Planetside. And I liked the direction they went with this, even though I didn't really like all the armors themselves. They also offered a whole bunch of continent-themed bundles during this event, and people were able to get some cool camos and other stuff like that for the game, all as an homage to the original Planetside. It was really good. But then we did have some sad news in May when a critic of Planetside 2 and Daybreak Games, but still someone who played a lot of the game and brought people into the game, talked about the game early on, did a lot of things with the game itself. We learned that Total Biscuit had passed away in May from cancer, unfortunately. And while I can't claim that I was friends with Total Biscuit or anything like that, I did have interactions with him back when we did Reachcast. We had him on and other things like that. And he was very instrumental in pushing Planetside 2 early on, talking about it, getting people to play the game itself, and things like that. So it was very sad to hear that he had passed away. Also adding to the sad news in May, Bill Yates, the art director for Planetside 2, left Daybreak Games entirely as well. Just one of the people who left Daybreak Games during 2018. Moving along to June, though, June was actually probably one of the biggest months for Planetside 2. And they added a lot of the continent events to the game itself. They added the aerial anomaly event to the game. There was a huge construction update in June, which reduced a lot of the cordium costs, some of the schematic costs, and finally brought us the flail, the pain spire, and the router to the game. And let's be honest, the router is probably one of the biggest changes to gameplay within Planetside 2 that happened in 2018. I mean, a mobile spawn, that you can place all over the place within the game itself really has changed how construction works within the PC side, at least, of Planetside 2. They also did an overhaul to the implant screen. They added cooldown timers for vehicle abilities, which is huge. I wish that's something that had been there for the longest time. They also brought in Doku's battle rifles to the game, so we got our first crack at the Dragoon, the Bishop, and the Obelisk in the game itself. We got some changes to C4, specifically a new detonator model was added to the game, and also a delay in order to trigger C4 was added. Anchor mode on the Prowler was changed so that it's now the default option on all Prowlers, and instead they added the Barrage option, which when activated reduces the reload speed by 30%. They also added the piercing ability to the Aphelian's Crescent Beam, so this is the first instance of a vehicle weapon doing the piercing mechanic that previously was only to a gun. And they also made it so that anybody who was BR-15 or lower was no longer subject to population queues within the game itself, which was really kind of a big thing for new players to the game itself. Unfortunately, they did also introduce the micro freezes and hitching to the game, which is something that I experienced a ton in June and really sucked before they were able to finally track some of that down. Moving into July, though, in July, we got the 4th of July event within the game itself, or I guess they call it the Independence Day event instead, where they added freedom thrusters back to the game. And also they added a new summer event to the game in July, where we got the Soldier Soaker pistol, which I know is a lot of people's favorite weapon, especially when it had its awesome... It had the headshot modifiers were insane for it. They added the water balloon grenades, and they also added the new summer directive to the game, which gave us a taste of new flash vehicle weapons, the Buzzard, the Starfall, and the Pillager. And this is the first time that we've been able to get a vehicle weapon reward from a directive early before it was actually purchasable within the game itself. They also, in July, added some new Max and Valkyrie directives. Max's was damage to vehicles, and Valkyrie got its road kills added. They exempted the flail from team killing in July. Also in July was the first time that cryptic tweet, the Ernstro Ropers tweet, appeared on the Planetside 2 Twitter account, and it led to months and months of speculation on what the hell that could actually be. They also removed command chat from the game in July and replaced it with the sitrep command that I'm happy to say that people are still using today, even though I did prefer command chat. And then finally, sad news. This was when my friend Ripple unexpectedly passed away. And I have to thank everybody again who donated to me to make a donation in his name to the charity that he asked us to support. I do still miss Ripple to this day. I had a lot of fun times in game with him, and it's always sad when we lose somebody like that from the game. Moving on to August, though, this is when the performance issues in the game were starting to be their worst, and a lot of people were very unhappy with August and the performance issues within the game. But moving along from that, in August, we also got the first taste of the devs publishing a dev team picture where we got to see that there are 9 people working on Planetside 2. And I did a lot of talk about that when that picture came out in August. Also, they changed meltdown alerts so that while you're playing during them, you got an additional 25% XP gain, which is actually huge, and actually pushed a lot more people to continue fighting during alerts rather than logging out. They added the gaining ground event in August, and this is the one where you're trying to capture the large outposts. I really like that one, to be honest. Mentor squads were also added to the game in August. Fire team changes were implemented in August, and a new constructive directive was added in August. If you finish the Tier 2, you get the solid wall schematic. Tier 3, you get the blueprint banner. And Tier 4, you unlock the Araxium mandibles for the ant. Also in August, the implant pool was doubled with the addition of 23 new implants to the game. And they also added implant crafting to the game during August. Also, the Valkyrie got its first nerf, where its small arms resistance was increased, or reduced actually at that time, making the Valkyrie absolutely horrible during the month of August. They also buffed suppressors across the board in August, and announced that they were working on both the SolTech server and Oshur for the first time. Also, though, in August, we did have a little sad news, not Planetside related, but H1Z1 Just Survive did get shut down in August, which led to a lot of speculation on how Daybreak Games was doing financially at the time. Moving on to September, though, we first started seeing new lore being added to the Planetside 2 website, and the devs specifically said that they were going to be doing a lot more work on lore within the game itself. But also in September, PlayStation 4, the performance there started getting worse and worse. A lot of people reporting a lot more blue screens within the PS4 version of the game. A lot more disconnects popping up. And I think the PlayStation 2 population on the PS4 took probably its biggest hit of the year in September. Moving away from bad news regarding the PS4, though, Roxley did tease for the first time a new membership reward that we'd be seeing in 2019 for the first time in December. And also in September, we saw our first new Sunder weapons come to the game, or I guess they're not technically Sunder weapons, new vehicle weapons come to the game, secondary weapons. The Siegebreaker, the Aurora, and the Paladin all came to the PTS. But as far as I know, they have not come to live yet, and I don't know if they ever will come to live. But it's the first time we've seen some new secondary vehicle weapons in a long time. September was a pretty quiet month, I'm not going to lie. But they did make up for it in October, because the SolTech server did go live for the first time in October, allowing us to go test it out and see what it's like to play on a non-US or EU server for the first time. And really this was to hopefully pull a lot of the Asian players off of Connery and fix some of the ping issues on Connery and move them over to their own server. Also in October, we got the return of the Nanite of the Living Dead event. This is Nanite of the Living Dead 5. And in this event, we got the new Fireflies tire trails, which are some of my favorites. We got the Ecto Blaster sidearm. We got the Lightning AP, the BOO variant, which I never did unlock, and I wish I did. And finally, drop pods got changed to look like Galacto lanterns when they dropped. Also during October, the Unstable Meltdown alert was added. This is to kind of rotate continents a little bit more, and I believe this was more than anything pushed out for Briggs, which had a lot of continents open and then stay stuck in that unstable phase because not a lot of players were playing, and this forced it so a meltdown alert could even happen on unstable continents themselves. They also in October added the NSAM8 shortbow archer variant to the meltdown alert rewards. In October, we also saw the Wraith Cloak Flash nerf appear, where you couldn't toggle on and off the cloak itself, and they added a delay to it. The Valkyrie Small Arms nerf was rolled back a bit to make the Valkyrie less, more desirable to use and feel less like a Cert Pinata than it did. But also in October, we saw a lot of disconnect issues coming up on the PC side of the game. They were still occurring on the PS4 side, but they really cropped up on the PC side of the game in October. So much so that Nick had to release a producer's letter apologizing for the disconnects and saying that they were going to have some make goods regarding it that we haven't gotten yet. And also this announced for the first time that they were rolling back an update that they made to the game to fix these issues. Now, this is the first time that I'm aware in the entire life of Planetside 2 that they had rolled back some updates that they made to the game. In the past, updates have just been out there, and I've never done a rollback as far as I know. So that was kind of groundbreaking for Daybreak Games regarding Planetside. Moving on to November, though, we're almost done here. And God, I've talked about so much stuff that happened in 2018. The devs certainly were not quiet in 2018. But in the beginning of November, it was the Extra Life charity. And you guys know this is the first year that I participated in Extra Life. I was very excited to do it. I met my goal thanks to a handful of listeners who helped me get there. I appreciate you guys. But also Daybreak Games also participated in Extra Life charity streams and raised a whole bunch of money as well. It was good. It was a good time for Extra Life with Planetside. Also, in November, we discovered the Meltdown Alert tiebreaker system, and it was also revealed how that was changed. For you guys that remember, the old Meltdown Alert tiebreaker system always said that if there was a tie, VS would win, or if there was a tie between all three, VS would win. If there was a tie between NC and TR, NC would win, and TR could never win a tiebreaker. Now that's been randomized within the game itself. We also got a slight speed increase to the Mag Rider in November, but the biggest news in November, obviously, was the 6th anniversary of Planetside 2. And within that anniversary, the new bundles came out. Just like in 2017, we got 3 different variants of them, but obviously the best one, as far as I'm concerned, was the largest one, that $80 one, which got us, or I'm sorry, the $90 one if you weren't a member, which got us faction horns, decals, AE variants of the Empire-specific power knives, all kinds of different camos, the NS Phantom helmet, the Empire-specific or Dooku's LMGs, AE variants of those. Like I said, a whole bunch of different camos. We got some implants unlocked in this one. Squad Logistics, Firewall, and Disengage specifically. Get a whole bunch of basic implant packs, and also a 12-month heroic boost, my favorite. Also in November, we got the first time that the Nanite Systems Operatives were announced, and this was the new membership bonus that Roxley had teased about months and months before. And if you guys don't remember what the NSO is, it's basically your fourth faction for Planetside 2, and they're robots, and they're nanite robots, and you're going to be able to play, if you're a member, you're going to be able to play as these NS operatives and be able to play on the most underpopped faction when you log into different continents. I'm a member right now. I'm looking forward to this. But the other big news in November is I had Drew on as a guest on my Thanksgiving leftover show, and we learned a lot about Drew that we didn't know before. It's the first interview I've had in a long time, and I'm hoping to have more of them in 2019 and not wait almost an entire year before I do them again. And then to wrap this up, we kind of move into December itself, where the 31 days of Araximus returned with all the great stuff that you could buy. Unfortunately, also in December, Daybreak Games had another round of layoffs, and I talked about this one recently and how it really sucks when a company lays folks off in December. Again, Planetside 2 was not affected by this, so that's the only good news out of Daybreak Games doing more layoffs. Also, though, in December, the Araximus Directive came around again, where you could get the holiday hat, the Araximus banner, and the Grouchy title and Santa's Little Helper shotgun, which I did get both of those, so I'm happy with that. Also in December, the Solid Gold Weapon Camo reward from completing the Exceptional 2 Directive was made permanent. That's a recent change to the game itself. So make sure if you've gotten that, you can go turn all your guns gold now. Transfers between Connery and SolTech recently opened up, and as far as I know, they're going through the end of the month, and there's no talk on specifically when those are going to end. So if that's something that you're looking to do, you better get on and do that. But I think the biggest news that we got in December was Planetside 2 Arena's announcement. And this is going to be Daybreak Games' first foray into a Battle Royale type game, which I'm not a fan of, but have still purchased and will be playing when it does come out, when it's coming out on the 29th of January. So, I mean, we're less than a month away at this point before this thing goes live. I'm all set and ready to go into the beta and play around with that. And we'll actually just kind of have to see what this is like when it comes out, because we've really only gotten little snippets of news regarding Planetside Arena, that there's going to be 2 modes when it comes out, a Battle Royale mode and a Massive Clash mode. It's going to be 250 versus 250 to start, and they're looking to maybe go to 1,000. We know there's going to be 3 classes to start: an assault class, which is kind of like light assaults, a medic class, and an engineer class. And other than that, we don't have a lot of information about it. We did also, though, get Nick's producer's letter for December saying that, yes, although Planetside Arena is coming out, they do plan to keep supporting Planetside 2. And this is a good opportunity for people to play both Planetside Arena and Planetside 2 when they're curious about the continuing war of Planetside on Araxis. And he reiterated all the things that they're looking forward to bringing us in 2019, including Oshur and the NS operatives that I just talked about, and that there are no plans to sunset Planetside 2 at any time. It's going to be running in tandem to Planetside Arena. And then the last and most recent news we've gotten for Planetside is the Daybreak Winter Extravaganza, which they opened up 4,000 lifetime memberships for all of their various games. So that's Planetside 2, DCUO, and both EverQuest and EverQuest 2. And I do know, as you're listening to this, they did extend the lifetime memberships so that you do have until the 31st. So if you're listening to the show on the 31st and you wanted a lifetime membership for $299.99 Daybreak cash, almost $300, you can purchase a lifetime membership still, but you're absolutely running out of time if that's something you want to do. $300 is a little too rich for my blood. I would love a lifetime membership. I guess that's probably the only thing that I didn't get for Christmas that I did want. But that's going to wrap it up. I have to say, 2018, a hell of a lot of stuff came to Planetside 2. I mean, if I got to take a look back and say what were some of my favorite things that happened in 2018, I think that if I had to pick three things in order of when they occurred, even though I didn't like it at the time, I think ASP was probably one of the things that I liked the most. After that, the 15th anniversary of Planetside was probably my second favorite thing, especially because of the VS Rexo armor and helmet. And then finally, the last thing that I liked in 2000, or my favorite thing in 2018, is going to have to be the announcement of the NS Operatives. Again, I'm a member, so that's something that I get access to for free when it goes live. And it's something that I'm really looking forward to playing around with when it actually makes it to live. So I hope that's one of the things that they are working on early for 2019, because I'd hate to wait a long time for something like that to go live. So I think those are my top three favorite things of 2018. And I'm really looking forward to 2019 and continuing to, produce this podcast in 2019. So I'm just going to take this last moment to just say thank you to everybody who has listened to my show in 2018. And I'm looking forward to 2019 and continuing this ride of a podcast with all of you. But with that, let's move on to housekeeping this week.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
Now, I didn't get any emails or voicemails or anything like that. It's because it's Christmas. I get it. You guys are all spending time with your family, and that's the way it should be. So let's wrap up this week's show. How can you get in touch with me, the show? Obviously, your first stop should be my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. You can also send me an email at instantactionshow@gmail.com. Call me, leave a voicemail, 347-4VM-4PS2. Those digits are 347-486-4772. Follow the show on Twitter, InstAct Podcast. That's INSTACT Podcast. Or follow me directly on Twitter. I am at The Derringer. But in closing, as always, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. But finally, thanks for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.
yeah!